G'day cocktail lovers. I've been making a few cocktails recently where spirit is not the base of the drink. It's fun to mix things up occasionally. The vast majority of cocktails I've had have been spirit based, and you get modifiers to play around with. Some of them, the modifier is actually the base, and there may be a little spirit or no spirit at all in them. One such cocktail that I quite enjoyed was called the Beatnik. It has an Amaro and port base, and there's also some rye whiskey in there. But the rye whiskey isn't the main show. I don't drink a lot of Amaro, and I certainly don't know a lot about Amaro, to the point where I usually only have one Amaro on hand. If I want in-depth info on Amaro, I'll probably go to Uncle Pete, and I'll try and remember to put a link to his channel down here, because he does some very in-depth analyses of different drinks in this area. I'd latched onto a while ago Amaro Montenegro. I quite like this one, and so I tend to use this in any cocktail that calls for an Amaro. The default recipe for the Beatnik calls for Averna as the Amaro, which I did not have until I just went out and picked this up. The reason I picked it up is because I keep seeing recipes that say use Averna, and people assure me there's a difference and you'll appreciate it. What really prompted me is I shared the cocktail on Steve the Bartender's cocktail crew on Facebook, and one of the commenters tried and said, "That's really good," and I said use Amaro Montenegro, and he goes, "I think this would be better with Averna." So I said, well, Averna is actually the recommended Amaro. So he went off and tried it and said, it's better with Averna. Also, now I'm drunk. Thanks. You're welcome, Shaughnessy. You're welcome. This is a big moment for me. My first bottle of Averna. That isn't quite as satisfying as the pop of a stopper coming out of a bottle for the first time, but you only get that crack once. Likewise with the glug glug glug. Love that new bottle, glug glug glug. I'm going to make the Beatnik two versions, one with each of the Amaro, and see which one I prefer, but I'm also going to do a direct taste comparison. I don't drink Amaro on its own, so this should be interesting how I cope with it. Straight up, very different looking. The Amaro Montenegro, much lighter, honey coloured. The Averna, very dark, opaque, almost black in fact. Tell you, I might start drinking this on its own. It's like honeyish and lightly herbal, and just that little bit of bitterness on the end. But the Averna, that's a different type of honey, and the taste comes through later. I have to say, I really like the lingering on the tongue of both of them. There's this honey-like sweetness mixing with the bitterness and the herbal elements. It's quite a pleasant aftertaste. Now we've determined that I certainly don't mind either of them straight, I'm going to make two versions of the Beatnik, one with each of the Amaro. In our mixing glass we put 1 ounce or 30 mils of the Amaro, then we put 3/4 of an ounce, about 22.5 mils of rye whiskey, and finally 3/4 of an ounce or about 22.5 mils of port. Add ice to the glass, stir that for 20 to 25 seconds to chill and dilute the drink, and then strain that into a chilled Nicanora. And of course I did that twice, once with the Amaro Montenegro and once with the Averna Amaro. The colour did carry through. The Averna managed to be darker overall than the Amaro Montenegro. With the port, I wasn't sure if I'd see any difference, but I can still see the difference. I think I should try the Averna first. That's just a really pleasant drink. I am also using a cask strength rye whiskey, so it's actually holding its own in there. Now, do I taste any difference with the Amaro Montenegro? I'll try to describe what that difference is. I feel like making it with the Averna, it just has a slightly more noticeable bitter edge, that Amaro bitterness. Neither of these are particularly bitter Amaro to me. They're really quite sweet, just with a really pleasant balance between the bitterness and the sweetness. If you are fond of that more bitter edge, and it's only slight, then I think you will prefer the Averna. If really bitter Amaros scare you off, you might prefer the Amaro Montenegro. Honestly, I'm going to give it one more taste to see if I can come up with anything insightful. I could taste a note of chocolate in the Averna that I don't get in the Montenegro. Honestly, these are both great. There's no way I'd put either of these back. My personal scale, these probably both get an 8 out of 10, and that means I would definitely make them again. Now I have some Averna, I guess I'll get a bit more diversity in my cocktails when they call for an Amaro, and it's just one more for the collection. I can't stop. someone stop me. I can't stop double fisting either. Oh no! I'm just going to have to go off and drink these. I hope you enjoy whatever you're drinking, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. And I do hope to see you again. Until such time, I will say, cheers.